Coming up on this episode, the Warriors get a thrilling 115-113 victory over the Houston Rockets at Toyota Center on Thursday. The major takeaways from that one, and could we see the imminent return of a couple of veteran players? Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates podcast in the aftermath of the Warriors getting a truly shocking 115-113 win over the Houston Rockets on Thursday night. I was kind of out on this team, and so much out on this team that I was even contemplating the whole tanking idea after a couple of really disappointing losses, it must be said, to both the Los Angeles teams, the Lakers on Saturday night and then the Clippers on Monday night. A couple of really poor performances, and I thought, well, maybe this is just what the team is. Obviously, they're lacking talent and star power right now with all their injuries. Moses Moody, another injury that he picked up on, that was picked up by the Warriors on Monday, missing yesterday's game with a wrist sprain. I was just like, man, like the Warriors have 7 available main roster players for this game against the Rockets. Had no expectations of them getting a victory. I'm not sure if I still don't have any expectations of them getting a win on Saturday against the Oklahoma City Thunder. But just as I'm contemplating the whole tanking idea, this team manages to drag me back in with quite an incredible, tough, gritty performance on the road against a third team in the Western Conference standings. And I don't want to talk too much about the Rockets, but if I was a Rockets fan, I would have been concerned and disappointed with what I saw. I think we haven't seen all-star level Şengün for quite a while, and the tit for tat, my turn, your turn with him and KD offensively is a little bit worrisome to me. There's just no free-flowing nature to their offense, and I think, they should have beat the Warriors yesterday, no doubt about that, but I think in the bigger picture, I don't particularly see them as a contender this season, despite still having a reasonable win-loss record. But from a Warriors standpoint, again, I was contemplating, I was like, okay, well, going into yesterday's game, do I even want to win any of these games, right? Because they are close enough now where they could get the 11th worst record in the league. Like, you've got the Clippers who are 1.5 games behind them. Well, going into yesterday's game, it was like 1 game behind, 1 game in front of the Clippers and then 2 games in front of the Portland Trailblazers, the 10th seed. It's like you can not easily, but there's certainly a pathway. The trajectory of the 3 teams are going in different directions. The Warriors are heading south. The other 2 teams, the Clippers, have certainly been excellent since their disappointing start to the season. They've just got Darius Garland back. The Trailblazers are still trying to win to some degree. So there's certainly a pathway in which the Warriors can finish as the 10th seed, get bundled out first round of the play-in, and be a 10th seed team in the Western Conference. And then if you look at the East right now, well, Atlanta and Charlotte are both, particularly Charlotte are one of the best teams in the league right now. They're on the way up, and they have a similar record to the Warriors. So they could also finish, Golden State that is, with a worse record than the 2 teams that finished 9th and 10th in the Eastern Conference. So they could finish with the 11th worst record in the league. Guess who finished with the 11th worst record in the league last season? The Dallas Mavericks, and end up with Cooper Flag, which it actually gives me less optimism about the Warriors jumping from the 11th worst record in the league to having a top 4 pick or even the number 1 overall pick in this draft. But having the 11th worst record does give you about a 9.4% chance at a top 4 pick. So that's a 1 in 10 chance. It's not great, but obviously if Golden State did get a top 4 pick, that completely changes the trajectory of your franchise. What you sometimes miss in all of this is like, this is the Golden State Warriors. Okay, this is a team that have won 4 championships in the last 12 years. This is a team that still has Steph Curry on the roster, still has Draymond Green, who, for all the disappointing elements that we've had of his game this season, like, he's still a guy that's going to go out there and have some pride in his performance, I think, particularly in big matchups like we saw going against Kevin Durant, even against Kawhi and the Clippers on Monday. Like, I didn't love, Draymond's game necessarily, but you could feel like there was a bit of extra oomph and energy in his game, particularly in the first half, just chasing around Kawhi Leonard and making things as difficult as possible for him. So, you're going to get, like, there's still some veteran guys there. There's still guys playing for contracts and stuff like that, which means they're still going to have the potential to just come out and play harder than the opposition. And trust me, anyone that's played basketball and, play social league basketball on a Tuesday night, a lot of times you can overcome talent differential with sheer effort and hustle. A lot of times, like, I'm playing Tuesday night and it's like, okay, guys, we understand this team is better than us from a talent perspective. But if we actually work harder, then we can win this game. And I feel like the Warriors still have that potential, and they're not a team. There is still some element of championship DNA. You've got Steve Kerr as a 4-time championship winning coach. They're not going to just lie down and fall apart and suddenly put their hands up and say, we're going for the 11th worst record in the league. We're trying to tank and get the best possible lottery odds. They're just not going to do that, as much as us as fans, analysts might actually look at it and say, you know what, the best outcome in the long term would be to improve your lottery odds as much as you can, and obviously get incredibly lucky and fall into a top 4 pick at the lottery. So they're just not going to do that. They're going to continue to try and make the playoffs. They're going to try and get some guys back from injury here. I don't know what's going on with Steph, but I'm assuming there's a potentially close return for a couple of more veteran players. Obviously, we'll probably, by the time you guys are watching and listening to this, we'll probably have more updates for Saturday's game against the Thunder. Again, no real optimism for that one, but at the same time, they do have then after that an upcoming back-to-back against the Utah Jazz on the road and then back home against the Chicago Bulls, I think. So that's a situation where suddenly you could have won 3 of your last 4 games, and they should have won on Monday against the Clippers. You had a 17-point halftime lead. They played well in the first half and yet melted down in the second half in quite a disappointing fashion. Then going back to last Saturday against the Lakers, they never really had a chance. Just some key takeaways from this game against the Rockets yesterday, which was, again, I felt like it was going to be similar to the Clippers game where the Warriors jumped out to a 10-point lead at the end of the first quarter, and then the Rockets kind of pulled them in, and your second half, you just thought, okay, now the Rockets are going to take control here and kind of run away with it. And again, to Golden State's credit, they dig their heels in and said, no, we're going to make this a battle. And they obviously forced overtime and then executed enough down the stretch where the Rockets didn't. A couple of big buckets, like LJ Cryer making a 3 in overtime, and the Pods one to put them in front. And obviously up 5 with 1:12 remaining and with the ball, it's like, geez, okay, you should close it out from here. But with the Warriors, it's never that simple, right? There's always something that has to rise some anxiety and angst among fans. And we saw that with D'Anthony Melton turning the ball over, and then Thompson obviously getting the steal going down, getting fouled, and then hitting the first free throw, missing the second. Rockets get an offensive rebound. KD 3, bang, 4-point possession. It's a 1-point gain, still with plenty of time remaining. And then next possession down for the Rockets, Warriors score, and then throughout Horford, and then the next possession down, Melton fouls KD on a 3-point shot, and you think, okay, well, here's Kevin Durant's chance to tie the game, makes the first 2, misses the third one, and then credit to Melton, who is never going to back down. He's never going to go into his shell after a couple of mistakes, which, again, the turnover and then the fouling KD on a 3, like that was 2 back-to-back major mistakes that could have cost the Warriors that game. Goes to the rim again, misses the layup, gets his putback opportunity, extends the Warriors lead to 3, and then they played smartly coming out of the timeout. Draymond grabbed KD as quick as possible, and then obviously KD missed the first one, kind of accidentally made the second. Anyway, Warriors win by 2. One of the more impressive wins of the season, because it was one of the more surprising wins of the season. Again, you have 7 main roster guys available, right? You've got 14, that 7 guys out. You've got to play 3 two-way contracted players as part of your rotation. I mean, at some point, we've got to look at this and say, geez, the Warriors just own the Rockets, right? There's something, particularly in that building, particularly in Houston, there is like a voodoo or something going on where Golden State just have control of the Houston Rockets. They've got so many big wins, and in this case, an incredibly unlikely win against the Rockets, dating all the way back to, I suppose, when that rivalry really came up in 16, 17, 17, 18, that kind of period. So it was like a quiet smile for me on my face because I was watching the game because I was like, this shouldn't be happening. This shouldn't be happening. I'm not sure it's great that it's happening. Again, maybe the long-term outlook here is, if you're looking at how can this franchise get immediately better in the off-season, well, gaining a top 4 pick would be part of that, as it would be for a host of these teams right now who are either obviously tanking and are bottom 5 in their respective conference, or for a lot of teams in the play-in tournament mix where it's like you don't want to be in the middle. Okay, that's the last place you want to be in the NBA, is in the middle where you're not really contend. You're not really a bona fide playoff team. You're not really a championship contender. You're in the play-in tournament, and that means you're very unlikely to get the top pick either. So from an individual perspective in this game, I just want to start. Brandin Podziemski's been quite good in these last few games. He was excellent in the first, 17 minutes or so of Monday's game against the Clippers. Had 20 points. We all thought, here we go, he's going to have his first 30 ball of his career. And unfortunately, he didn't get there. He scored 2 points for the remainder like 31 minutes of the game, which really summed up. He wasn't to blame for that loss, but it really summed up that game from the Warriors, who started really well and then just fell off a cliff by the second half. But overall, in the past 10 games, he's been really good. Now, he hasn't been like this dominant star, this like breakout guy necessarily who's averaging 20 to 25 points a game, but he is putting up like really solid big numbers. He's 16.7 points, 8.3 rebounds, 4.5 assists in the last 10 games. So I want to give him a shout out. His shot making again down the stretch of that game was really important for the Warriors. Led them with 26 points, 9 rebounds. He's got back. He lost this for a little bit. He's got back to being an excellent rebounder for a guard. If you look at his numbers, he's like, he went through a stage. I think he was averaging like his rebounds on the season aren't necessarily terrific. Like he's 5.2 rebounds a game, which is about what he's been for his career. He's 5.8 in his rookie year. That remains a career high. 5.1 last season, 5.2 this season. But if you look at his last, again, during this 10-game span where he's averaging 8.3, he had those couple of double-digit, like 15 rebound games in there. So these are his last 7 games. 7 rebounds, 15, 15, 8, 7, 7, and 9. So that's kind of important, particularly for a Warrior team that we know likes to go to small ball combinations, a Heat who often likes to play 3 guards together. Having a guy that's going to crash the glass like that on both ends of the floor, I think, is important. So I that's one little element. Of course, with him, it's like oftentimes about the scoring and the playmaking, kind of making sure not to stall the offense by pounding the ball too much throughout a shot clock. And obviously the shooting efficiency and stuff like that. But the value in his game has always come, and why he's often been the plus minus king since he arrived at the Warriors a few seasons ago. It's always been about a versatile skill set. It's always been about being able to shoot and score a little bit, not an elite level, but a little bit, and being able to pass a little bit, being able to dribble and handle the ball a little bit, being able to rebound, being able to take charges, like doing all these different things that can contribute to winning. And again, I think he's got the rebounding aspect back here in the past 7 games in a way that he didn't really have necessarily throughout the first 50 games of the season, essentially. D'Anthony Melton was the second leading scorer for the Warriors with 23. Again, a guy who's not going to shy away from a challenge. That can get him into some trouble sometimes. I think there is a little bit of tunnel vision sometimes with him in terms of trying to score the ball too much. Like he took 22 field goal attempts yesterday, and bear in mind, like he's still on some some minutes restriction here, limited minutes. So there are times where he's going to the rim, and it's like, man, you're going up against like 3 defenders here, probably kick it out, right? Try and find the open man. But at the same time, it's hard to be too critical of that when there's no Steph and there's no Jimmy. Okay, if there was if Steph and Jimmy were out there, then I think Melton would actually pull back and be like, okay, now I need to defer to these guys a little bit. I think he's actually stepping up and meeting the moment because he's like, well, if I don't try and put up numbers here and put up shots here, who else is doing it? Who else is doing it somewhat effectively? Who else can actually try and get past that guy off the dribble? So I actually almost respect the fact that he's recognizing that and saying, well, you know what, it has to be me, and I'm going to be the one that takes the onus and the responsibility to try and generate a reasonably productive offense. And there's been games like, against the Clippers on Monday where he was really poor. Like he was like 2 of 10 shooting from the floor. And his shooting numbers this season remain pretty disappointing and at a level that is kind of not very reflective of his actual impact. Like I think he's had a really, really good bounce back season off his torn ACL, been really impactful for the Warriors, and yet the shooting numbers wouldn't necessarily suggest that. Because again, I think there are times, again, tunnel vision, but right now with Steph and Jimmy off the floor, it's hard to be critical of that sometimes because it's like, well, a lot of these guys aren't even putting themselves in situations where it's like, now I've got to the rim, can I make a layup? And stuff like that. Talking of layups, though, just to briefly mention that, I thought in a game that the Warriors won by 2, I thought Guy had a weird game because he had 14, 6, and 6, which sounds good, but he also had 7 turnovers, and he had a couple where it's like, maybe it's a chemistry thing, like he had a couple where he was trying to kick it out to LJ Cryer and like just missed him kind of thing, and the ball went out of bounds. He does get to the rim sometimes and is looking obviously for an option, gets stuck a little bit and ends up turning it over and stuff like that. So 7 turnovers for him in a game like this is really disappointing. But I also thought like 14, 6, and 6 is a good stat line. And man, he had a couple of finishes around the rim that were like really difficult, soft touch, high off glass. Like the one before halftime, to give the Warriors a 4-point lead at halftime, I was just like, man, like he's got some touch around the rim. And not only that, but he's also got footwork. We saw him put KD to the floor at one point where I think he must have just stepped on KD's foot or whatever. It looked, let me put it this way, it was one of those ones where it looked better than what it probably actually was kind of thing. But still, like his finishing around the rim is really, really impressive and still remains one of the bigger developments of the past 6 weeks or so since Jimmy's injury. Oh, geez, I'll tell you what, we're bordering on nearly 2 months now since that injury. But I'm going to be interested to see once Moses is back, which could be tomorrow against the Thunder, are we going to see Guy Santos come off the bench again? Because I'm frustrated by that. I'm frustrated by the fact that he has been arguably the biggest positive for Golden State in the last 2 months, and yet we're pushing him back into a bench role. I think it's really disappointing, but at the same time, as much as I and others have been pushing for Draymond to potentially come off the bench, you are probably not going to bring him off the bench against the Thunder, 1, because of them as an opponent, and 2, because he actually played one of his better games against the Rockets yesterday. Draymond had 10 points, 8 assists. It's really weird. He had 8 assists, and yet I felt like he was less dominant on the ball, which is bizarre. You would have thought, 8 assists, he was controlling things offensively. It felt like there was less of Draymond just standing at the top of the key trying to pick cutters and shooters and stuff like that, which I think the Warriors need to get into a little bit more, right? As in, they need to play in a style and a manner like they did yesterday. Maybe a little bit more traditional, like less of the split cut actions and stuff like that. Less of Draymond with the ball in his hands. Try and make Draymond like a cutter, right, himself. We know he's going to have to take the odd open 3 every now and again to try and keep the defense honest in some way or another. But it was a weird game because I thought offensively, again, 8 assists, but didn't necessarily dominate the ball in a way that I think has negatively impacted the Warriors for much of this season. And then defensively, again, it's almost like he's got to a point where you just give him a matchup. I think Draymond throughout his career has always been like the elite stuff with him has always been just the versatility, right? The ability to switch on to absolutely anyone, the ability to go out and guard guys on the perimeter or be like a shot blocker at the rim. I think now he's almost better in like direct one-on-one matchups rather than like being a help defender or anything. Like that's what we've seen over these last 2 games. It's like go out and just smother Kevin Durant, smother Kawhi Leonard. And like those guys still had reasonably efficient games. Like Kawhi Leonard had 23 points or whatever the other night. KD, did he have 23 as well? 22, 23, like 8 of 16 shooting, like reasonably efficient. But part of this was like Draymond just didn't let those guys get a huge amount of shot attempts up. It's like, I'm just going to deny the ball. Like I'm not, some of this stuff, like I'm just running out to you like on the perimeter. I'm just chasing you everywhere. I'm not even caring what's happening on the backside. I'm just going to trust my guys defensively to essentially try and guard 4-on-4 situations. It's like sometimes our guys guard Steph, prominently over the past few years. And again, you're giving Draymond a set target, I suppose, to lock in on. And again, I still think he can be a productive, efficient, positive NBA player when his mind is in the game, right? And when he's going up against a matchup that he desperately, desperately wants to win. Okay, because that once you give him that focus, then that also kind of translates to his offense as well. And again, we see again like yesterday, there's 8 assists, and there's no really like boneheaded turnovers or anything like that. His mind is in the game, right? Whether it's consciously or subconsciously, he's there and present. And I thought it was a positive game from him. A couple more here. Al Horford, it's actually one of the most disappointing aspects of the season to me. Like genuinely, obviously nothing's going to trump the Jimmy injury in terms of disappointment. And this Horford disappointment stems from the Jimmy injury. It's really tough for me to watch Al play and not get a sense of what could have been. Here's a guy who started the season terribly, who then dealt with a sciatic injury, and we were all like, is this guy washed or whatever? He comes back on Christmas Day. There's a brief stretch between like Christmas and the Jimmy injury in mid-January, a couple of weeks, where it works perfectly, right? Where it's like they go 12-4 or whatever in the 16 games before Jimmy's injury. Horford comes back, he's shooting like 40% from 3. It looks exactly as Golden State had envisioned when they signed Big Al in free agency. And then ever since then, and as the injuries have piled up to other guys, Steph's injured now, and they trade for Porzingis, and he's only played 17 minutes since. Seth Curry's been absolutely non-existent. This Moody injury, Gary Payton II, and Will Richard both have ankle issues. All these injury problems, and Al Horford, aside from obviously having to rest on second nights on one side of a back-to-back, obviously, has been ever present and been one of Golden State's best players. And it's a real shame to me that he's actually this good. Like, he's so good. He's nearly 40 years old. He's so good, but he's doing it on a plane. I don't think he deserves it. Like, it's really, I think if he had his time over again, I'd be interested to see, like, would he actually want to join the Warriors and be part of this situation where you're playing in Houston. Yeah, it's a great win, but you're playing in Houston on a Thursday night with half your main roster available. You're playing with a bunch of kids and two-way guys and guys that are late second-round picks and stuff like that. Not really what Al Horford envisioned when he signed with the Warriors. Sometimes these things happen, okay, and it's just disappointing. It's unfortunate. Maybe there's an element of, okay, this season didn't go to plan for us, but I showed from Christmas onwards that I'm still a very good NBA player, and therefore I want to try and make up for this. Right, I want to come back to the Warriors, have a second crack at it next season. Maybe that it actually helps bring him back to some degree. But I can't help but feel like I'm there shaking my head because I'm like, this dude's so good, and he's swinging the ball and then getting it back for a big corner three in like the fourth quarter down the stretch and just making big plays everywhere on both ends of the floor. And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, but we're a playing team. We're not a contender since Jimmy's, torn ACL injury. It's disappointing because who knows where he's going to be? Who knows where Al Horford's going to be? Who knows where Steph or Draymond are going to be in another 12 months? So it's hard to get away from that. But credit to Al because he's been so terrific for this team from his return on Christmas onwards. And it's just so disappointing. We only really got a brief couple of week period where it was like Al Horford's playing great and the Warriors are also playing great. Now it's like Horford's playing great and the Warriors just often lack the firepower and star power in some of these games. LJ Cryer to finish up on, he might be with the Curry brothers out, he might be the best shooter on the team. And he's played, before this game, he played 8 minutes all season. Like, which goes down to some of the Warrior roster, but also just goes to him as a really elite shooter. Like, the fact that you can play 8 minutes in an NBA career, and then you come out on the floor, and I would automatically look at you and think, yeah, you're the best shooter we've got here in this entire setting. 4 of 8 from 3-point range. He's like never going to be scared, right? And I was actually kind of impressed. Like, I don't want to pigeonhole guys, but a lot of these like small guys who can't shoot, who they feel like, small guys who are shooters, but like have defensive limitations and stuff like that. It's like some of them press too hard to try and be like, well, I know that my value lies in 3-point shooting, and so I'm just going to chuck shots at every opportunity. And often it can be ineffective and very much not lead to winning whatsoever. And as much as he took 8 3-point attempts, like I thought most of them, he might have had 1 or 2 step backs, maybe, where it's like, should he have taken that shot? But almost all of them were like, this is the shot, right, in the flow of the offense right now that this guy needs to take. Okay, there was none of this, you know what, I'm a two-way guy. I'm trying to make a statement in the league. I need to come out and smack 4, 5, 6 threes in people's faces and really show off, right? No, he came in and he played within the flow of the offense. He didn't dominate the ball by any means. He didn't put up a heap of like inefficient contested shots. Like, I was really, really impressed. And if you've got that shooting, and this is not like Warrior fans watching this guy for the first time, this is kind of just who he is. We saw it a few times in preseason, right? He would just come out and make a few threes. It's kind of who he is and has always been for quite a few years, going back to college, right? In Houston, he's a 41.3% shooter in college over a long college career. He's 42.4% in a championship winning season last year. He's well above 40% in the G League so far this year. So he's just a well in excess of 40% 3-point shooter at kind of every level. Now, is he that at the NBA level? Well, from what we saw in preseason, what we've seen in brief minutes already, and what we saw yesterday, yes, like that's just who he is. And Steve said in the post game, like, whenever this guy puts up a shot, I think it's going in. I've got to believe it's going in. And so that's interesting because he has an elite skill there, and an elite skill that the Warriors don't necessarily possess in terms of some shot making and shooting stuff off the dribble. Like, how many of these Warrior players do you feel confident? Like, if they go into, the offense is getting run down, there's 5 seconds left on the shot clock, and some guy, and a player has to go into a step back 3 or something like that. How many guys in the league, in fairness, do you believe are going to make that shot? Probably limited, but particularly on the Warriors, who are a team, it's like, we're going to run things through Steph and Jimmy. Steph's the one guy, obviously, who can make shots from anywhere and do absolutely anything. But how many other guys are like, they construct their roster in a way that they don't want anyone else to do that, right? They don't want any, like, Jonathan Kuminga would take, pull up mid-range jumpers, and Steve Kerr's like, get out of the game, brother. That's you done for the night. Like, they want the most efficient shots possible, and therefore they won't even, they very rarely consider tough shot makers, right? Or guys that can really do stuff off the bounce in terms of, getting into sidestep jump shots, or, step back jump shots, or anything like that. And, even the one yesterday is like, LJ Cryer gets it in the corner, pump fakes, sidestep, bang, corner 3. It's like, that's not as easy as he made it out to be. Like, not everyone can just guys can pump fake and then put it up, but like pump fake sidestep dribble into a 3, not necessarily something that every NBA player is capable of doing. So this dude has an elite skill, and I'm going to be interested to see whether or not he can parlay that into an NBA career, whether that's with Golden State or not, because he's 6 foot, he's undersized. the further he goes along, and if he does become like a genuine rotation member for the Warriors or another team, like eventually he's going to get in the scouting report. It's like, okay, well, we can pick on this guy defensively, and we're going to ensure that teams can't even utilize his 3-point shooting in his offensive production because he's just going to give that up and more on defense. So he's an interesting player to watch for me because, again, this wasn't some shock performance if you consider the fact that he's just been well in excess of 40% 3-point shooter at every level that he's played at: college, G League, now the NBA. So I'm going to be fascinated to see where his career pans out. And from a Warrior perspective as well, and a broader picture, like they might lack star power right now, but you can't take away from the fact that they're really, really good talent evaluators at the end of the roster, right? They do a fantastic job. 14th, 15th guys usually. Late draft, Will Richard, Quentin Post. You look at their two-way guys right now. Nate Williams was second leading scorer against the Clips on Monday. Malachi Leones had a really excellent game against the Grizzlies last week. LJ Cryer comes out and does what he did yesterday. Like, they are really good talent evaluators at, the end of the roster, right? Two-way guys, getting guys who can come in and fill minutes and don't look out of place. That's, Leones, Williams, Cryer, they don't look out of place, right? Will Richard, as a 56 overall pick, hasn't looked out of place. So credit to Mike Dunleavy Jr. in the front office for that one. They've obviously been in for a lot of criticism in recent times, but we shouldn't take away from the fact that they can build. It's why I've always said it's like they can probably get away with having top end rosters from a financial standpoint, because what they do on like the minimum and on their two-way guys and stuff like that, I'm pretty confident like they can build out a rotation and a pretty productive back end roster because they've shown the ability to do that in the last few years. Just to finish up here, the Warriors again in action tomorrow against the Thunder. I don't know, again, by the time you guys are watching and listening to this, we might get an update on Kristaps Porzingis and potentially Seth Curry as well. Just 2 games at the start of December for Seth Curry, but both were on the floor pre-game workouts yesterday against the Rockets. That was nice to see. ESPN's Anthony Slater shared that. But I don't really have too much optimism and confidence in KP's return to the floor, obviously, until I actually see it. Seth Curry is obviously a big unknown as well. What we would say is like those guys wouldn't be on the road trip if they were still a while away. Like if they were still a while away, then they would have kept them in the Bay and just done workouts there and whatever else. The fact they're on the road trip suggests to me that they could partake in action here, either against the Thunder on Saturday or against the Jazz in Utah on Monday. So keep an eye out for that one, because obviously you'll be interested to see both of those guys back in action, playing for contracts, playing for their careers to some degree, particularly in regard to Seth. And the Warriors obviously just need bodies right now. Again, with only 7 available main roster players available yesterday against the Rockets. And let's finish it up there. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POK252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. And I'll see you next time.